Coming on strong. Hope you guys are feeling blessed, no matter where you are. I'm going to be having a pretty chillaxed version today because I feel like a lot of us are at this point of our existence. And I might get copywritten, but I'm giving it a try. So I'm just rolling up some of my sage bundles. And the topic I'm talking about today is how a lot of us have been going through tremendous breakdowns to tremendous boost ups, or even to tremendous breakthroughs. You know what I mean? So when I started on this journey several years back, for those of you that have followed me, I can say at this point I'm at like maybe breakdown to breakthrough number 6 or so. And what I'm doing is I have sage packs outdoors, and I'm just like combining it. I'm going to be making sage bundles. Now, why I'm talking about breakthroughs is because years ago, when I was visited by Lord Yeshua, he made it very crystal clear. He came to clear one of my chakras, which was my solar plexus, the one that's right under your rib cage, between your stomach and your sacral. And he said to me, he goes, your solar plexus, the chakra that controls will, okay, is like an onion. It's always unraveling and unfolding. And every layer that comes off, you will see changes. And as he touched my solar plexus, it blossomed out like a lotus. And I didn't truly understand what he meant by that until I started going through this process of ascension. And it's so true. It's like when I see myself a couple years back on this channel, and I see myself at this point now, like I literally thought I had a handle on it like years ago. And now that I sit here, I'm like, whoa, like how much has evolved for all of us, right? Like it's like every year or so you go through that breakdown, you get disheveled again, and you start building it back up, but from a like stronger platform, on another plateau, on another dimensional conscious way of thinking, right? And like for myself, like last year I started my other channel, for my Up High Healing channel, and it's been growing and it's been doing well this last year. I realized as August was kicking off, I'm like, wow, I've been in business fully and truly for a year now. And like I always look to my Sophiatic sister Kuan Yin, you know, she's always teaching me about compassion, about strength through compassion. And I think the main takeaway from that, I learned from all my masters, as I hope you guys do too. She's always trying to instill this idea that we all have to have not just compassion for others, but compassion for ourselves. So I started really thinking about like, what have I achieved in this year? And I'm sure many of you may or may not think that you're ahead or behind or whatever the case may be. It's all in beautiful celestial and divine timing. And I know when I first started on this journey, I couldn't stand that same divine timing. You know, it felt like molasses. That's the best way I could describe it. But as you move through it, you start to realize, like, yes, like all the developments we go through do take a tremendous amount of time. Like that layer that comes off each year to 2 years, I don't think it ends. I don't think we go through this ascension period for a short period of time. I think we start off at a point and then we just continue evolving, right? So when I think about that compassion level that Kuan Yin always tries to instill in my mind, and if you don't know who Kuan Yin is, she's a very pronounced avatar from China. I guess she would have been around, what, the 16th, 17th century? And there's very many stories about how she came to be an avatar. Some are nice and some are not as pleasant, but I can honestly say through my time that I first met her in Sedona, Arizona back in 2011, like in physical form. I was blessed to have met her there, and I think it was Cathedral Rock. And I knew from that point on, she has stepped in multiple times in my life. Even when I was off my journey, she still was rooting for me, like Yeshua was rooting for me, like they do, like your angels do. Everyone roots for us, you have no clue, on the other side of things. And I was thinking about that because I was like, wow, I've had this website up for a year. I've had my products going for a year. I've had my channelings. Like if you guys have been with me for, this would be year 3 on this channel. But you have to understand, like, even though we might come on to our spiritual journey, doesn't mean like we've got the groove yet or we figure things out. Like on this particular channel, I know that if you did watch me, I was coming off a horrific breakup, and then I was leaving a career, and then I was figuring out my ability, what it was, what was taking place, and like slowly, I got to the point where I was like, okay, I let go of law, and then I I was like, how do I figure out and navigate a business while taking care of a kid? So I have to give myself some form of grace and compassion, and I think all of you do too. And I know for myself, the patrons that have been with me since day one, I keep in contact with a lot of y'all, okay? And I can honestly say you guys have blossomed like so magnificently. Shout outs to a lot of my patrons on here. We as a familia have done great works and great things, and I know we're going to continue doing more. And I just wanted to commemorate this year for myself because it has been challenging, and I keep moving through God's grace and wisdom, and I keep trying to keep forward in Yeshua's teachings, and knowing that no matter how chaotic the world gets out there, that there's always going to be that silver lining that God presents, that we're always going to make it through and grow and change and evolve in a way that we can't even fathom. So I was like, wow, like where am I this year, you know? So this year is going to be about getting on the conference circuit. I'm scheduled to get on it by October here in Canada, ergo why I'm doing all these sage wrappings. I'm going to be selling a couple products. I got a little mini book together. I'm hoping by like mid next year I get a formulated workshop experience going for how to connect with the higher selves or higher self in general. And I mean, that's what the book's going to be about in its totality. But all of us have these like wants and wills, and maybe some of us aren't even at a point where we have taken that deep dive or that deep jump forward. And I know for myself, the more I work with the angels, the more I work with Yeshua, the more I lean into all the teachings that all of these wonderful masters had to share. There is one united idea that all of them worked through the Christos consciousness. Jesus was one figure, okay, of many figures. You know, there's Krishna, there's Osiris, there's Odysseus. There's all these other figures that were very simple and similar to Jesus's upbringing and way of being. Herodotus, there's so many that you would say are resembling characters all through history, and most of them had to follow the same path. And ultimately what Jesus was always trying to teach us was that Jesus was right in here, God was right in here. There is no middleman. There is no need to outsource your need for existence or acceptance of self outside of yourself. So the more we reach into in the inside and do the scary things and do what's like not, you know, commonplace, you know, the more we can figure out who we are, the more we are excited to be who we are, the more we realize what our true path is here. And I can't even say that I'm done. Like, I'm just year one. I'd like to see where I'm at year 5, year 10, year 15, you know, God willing. You know, that's the only thing we got to worry about is like when our call date gets yanked, you know what I mean? But I think about Yeshua and how much of an inspiration he is. And I think for the years to come, I want to do much like Yeshua. And I want to visit some of the places that my avatars resonate with. And I want to, you know, tap into those places and actually see what the grid is like and see what the energy field is like. And maybe absorb some of those. You know, I always relate this to a game. So in some ways, I feel like, oh, when you go to these certain destinations, you might pick up a crystal or two or some jewel or nugget of information, a download of some sort. You know what I mean? That kind of gives you back a piece of your soul spark, or is a piece of your soul too. So I feel like for the next little while in my destined journey, I'm going to try my best to make it to Egypt. I'm going to make it my best to make it to China. I'm going to make it my best to perhaps go to India, even though I haven't really been called there. But I do feel like there's a lot of interesting characters that have really shaped me, like Siddhartha Gautama, Babaji, Kali Ma. Like, all of these major figures run through my mind, and maybe they do for you guys too. But I can honestly say, like, there's no stopping us. And I put up this post today that Confucius had said that, like, you know, I'll just sum it up. In general, all we have to do is take baby steps and steps towards the infinite purpose that we are. It doesn't end. You know what I mean? Like, ascension isn't in a short span of time. I remember when I first came on, I was like, oh, I'm all alive. I know everything. Like, not know everything, but it's like, there's not much more to explore. I'm healed. I was like, tisk tisk, my friend, you know? I started realizing, I was like, oh, there's more to this story. Oh, Yeshua has more in store for all of us. You know what I mean? And this is a battle of the soul that we're all facing at this point right now on this planet. And hold on, I'm just going to go grab some scissors. I'll be right back. It's a battle of the soul in so many ways. And the more time I spend with myself, I've been quite hermited. And I also, I've just been really focused on all the things I need to do. And I think I've done more in this year than I may have done in most of my life, in terms of like bettering myself and bettering my soul and bettering myself for others, because when we better ourselves, we better ourselves for the populace, for our children, for our families, for our loved ones. No one is perfect off the hop. Like, it's just not what it is. And I mean, like, I've had so many people come at me like, oh, how can you talk to this or speak to this? And it's like, you know what, some of us have had to go through very traumatic things. And if somebody even took a glimpse into what my life was like, I'm pretty sure that a lot of the people that put me through a lot of this tremendous torture and pain wouldn't even be able to make it through themselves. So I'm not even talking about the negative persons online. I'm talking about in real life. And I mean, what they say is so true. The best revenge ever is not to get back at people, but to live better, or to show people that you live in a place of bliss without them taking up space in your mind. Because at one point in time, maybe they did. And if you can get to a place where you're like, you know what, I do this not for you. I do this for myself. I do this for my family. I do this for everyone I love. You know, it becomes a bigger calling. And all of us have that inside, you know. And I feel like for myself, this next year is going to be really exploring like what I'm capable of. So this is my first wrap. And every day I do something. Like today I'm making a video for you guys. I made a video for my other channel, and I'm making some sage bundles. And tomorrow I'm going to hit the streets again and go looking for, would you guys believe that I bought a car? And the woman that sold me the cars not only sold me a lemon, she like would have potentially killed me and my son. And she has skipped town. So I put a APB out on her, a spiritual APB, because I was like, nah, you don't sell a vehicle and cut a cord. Like, she literally cut the line that goes to the engine. The engine, you know, the engine light, so that you know that something's up with your engine. She literally like cut it. So like I would never know that there's something wrong with the vehicle. So luckily for me, like I just went to the mechanic to have something checked out, and the guy was like, bro, like you've got to really seriously take a good look at this car, because she cut this line. Or if it wasn't her, it was someone else. So I just thank my lucky stars, because I've already done like 3 major trips with that car. And according to what the mechanic said, I shouldn't have even made it. You know, and that's why, you know, when things are protected and you're aligned with your purpose, like maybe some things work in your favor. You know, in this case, like luckily I found it. I was out like 5 G's, but I'm looking for another vehicle, because like I said, I'm getting onto the conference circuit come October, and if I get called to go do ones in like, let's say Manitoba or different parts, I want to be able to pick up my son and go and do them. So this is going to be an adventure this year, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that I can even do the work that I do. And it's not easy, I'll be honest. Like there's times like, you know, I question like what I'm doing, because I've never started a business before other than like a kitchen. Like I used to cook and make my own menus and run my own kitchens, and that's one form of business, but it's so different, because it's like some of us start businesses and like we really don't know what we're doing. We just have the passion, we just have the want, the desire, and we actually have the brevity and the bravery in our hearts to try. And we never know where we're going to land, like that's for sure. Like I literally have lived on less of a paycheck than I ever have, but I've lived a better life. Like I've had more time with my kid, I've had more time to go traveling, I've had more time for everything. So I can honestly say, like, even though I wasn't living the life I was living before, the faker's life, I'll say, I've literally taken a different stride. And I know that the traveling and everything is not going to change. It's going to continue. Like, I'm going to be going away for my birthday next month, and I'm so excited. I'm going to be headed back to a place that always warmed my heart. I won't say where yet. I already bought the tickets, and I got buzzed out on this. So I paid for I went to go get the motel I stayed at the last time. And this was like back in 2014. So we're talking like 11 years that I've been to this place. And before that, even later. But I was so sad when I saw that the place I loved was booked for my birthday. And I was like, no, I don't want to go find another place. So I gave it another week. And when I went to go show my friend, because she's coming with me, we all made an agreement that one of us as the friends was going to go with each other to wherever our destinations were. And we all get to pick it. So my other friend picked Las Vegas, and now I'm picking my destination. I know that I'm going to be singing karaoke on my birthday, which is the Friday. I get in on Thursday. We're going to go to a place. And there's one place I will say I'm headed to, and I'm so excited because I'm going to get to scream out at the top of my lungs. There's a forest on the way to where we're going, and this place is so quiet you can hear like a pin drop. Okay, and it's great because the last time I was there in 2011, I screamed to the top of my lungs and no one could hear me for like because you're in the middle of freaking nowhere literally, and it just echoes forever. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna get to do this again. So it's like weird to say that that's my big like excitement. But you know what? That's what I mean about the journey. It's like I don't have those like egoic wants where I'm like, oh, I want $1 million and I want this and I want that. Like, trust me, I do. I want to help the planet. I want to do a lot of great things. I want to build up Mexico, right? My place in Mexico. Those things are going to come. I'm not even worried about it at this point. Like, what I can achieve in 1 year is so much more fantastic. And I'm sure you guys are the same. Like if I had put myself first back in my 20s or 30s, like who knows where I would be now. But you know, with God's timing and what I've learned from all of the masters that assist me is like I would never know any different. Everything was designed in a way that I would be this exact person when I needed to be, right? Just the same as you guys. Like I think like when I came on my journey last time, the reason why I gave it up was because I was so chicken shit about like what people thought and my friends, and I'm thinking I'm crazy. And now I'm like, I don't care if people think I'm off kilter. You know what I mean? Because it's like, watch me now then, you know? And the thing is that so many people I know that thought I was off kilter 2 years ago are now coming to me for advice. Like I love it when people call me off kilter. I remember I had a person that was like, oh, do you ever think that you're bipolar or you're on the spectrum and this and that? I'm like, I don't know. I'll go ask my psychiatrist and my sociologist and my CEO or my psychoanalyst or psychotherapist clients, because they easily could have turned me into a client if they saw all this, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's funny to me that I'm like, oh, okay, well, I have these people coming to me, you know? So it's like, oh, well, I guess I'm not that, you know? But for most of us, like, I can't wait until the resurfacing of Yeshua's Christos consciousness, like, pours through all of our hearts. Because it's getting there, I see it. And I mean, people think that it was only Jesus that was supposed to attain this, and it's not. Like, it doesn't matter what any of the negative thought formed, let's say galactic persons try to accomplish. It was never going to work, because like they say, like love is the most encompassing power and it's the most powerful power. So that in itself should tell you a lot. Plus, if you've noticed in these last years, so much of the truth has come out for a lot of people. You know what I mean? A lot of the truth has come out around the world. Things that we never thought we would see. And a lot of weird things have happened, things that we thought we'd never see. You know, so to see that like we are not on the precipice of something amazing is a denial, right? And at the same time, it's like Jesus came here to show us the way. Jesus came to show us how we tap into our inner Christos consciousness. It wasn't just meant for one person. It wasn't just meant for the chosen. It was meant for everyone. You know, it's not his fault that in the Romans and all those what would I say? Patriarchal, you know, church heads, or those that felt like only men could run the show, or etc. Meanwhile, if anybody spent their time reading about Jesus, they would know that he was an Essene. And the Essenes were very devout. It was a very devout sect of Judaism. And they were also very devout in the sense where, like, they did take wives. They would go into the let's say, the caverns, and they would spend maybe 3 years or so in devout devotion to God, and they would stay in those mountains. And that's why, like, when people say, like, oh, Jesus didn't write anything, I find that very hard to believe. I wouldn't be surprised if in those mountains or in those regions they're going to find something. Not to say that it probably wouldn't have been wiped out. I'm sure they had them in the Alexandria library, but that was also by design. Like, is it just a, you know, is it a shock that, you know, every library that ever would have held any of this older knowledge doesn't exist anymore? Like, it even makes me laugh when they're like, oh, Sumerians were only 5,000 years old and this and that. It's like, no, the Anunnaki impressions go back as far as like 200,000 years. Like, there's parts of Africa in Adam's Circle that literally have imprints of giants' feet and hands. And these rocks are like dated. Like, back then it would have been mud, put it that way. And like you know, the idea of like the deluges that took place on this earth only being like 5,000, you know, even the Sphinx in Egypt isn't even dated correctly. Actually, the Sphinx used to be a dog. And it has the body of the dog if you look at it, and the head itself is only dated to 5,000, but the body is 13 to 15,000 years old. So it's like what we do know of our history is so distorted. And the fact is that almost every single embodiment of an avatar, and you got to understand, avatars are no one truly special. The only thing that changes, like, we are also at the precipice of being ascended masters ourselves. Some of us could be reincarnated ascended masters right here, right now. The only thing is that we are not remembering who we are. The more time I spend on this planet, the more I'm reminded by all of my spirit team as to who I may have been in my other reincarnations or my other astral existence, you know, in different parts of this galaxy. And for those of you that don't believe that that exists, like, let's be real. Jesus was not from this planet. There's so many artifacts, art, frescoes, all describing that Jesus would have come off of some form, or like there was always craft in all of his pictures. And I mean, it's not for nothing, but even in the Hindu religion, like, you know, there's so many craft flying around. Even in the older Dogon tribes of Africa, there's craft flying around. Like when the Americans were talking about, like, oh, the aliens coming from the water. You know, the Dogon persons, like, this was a sect of the Africans that literally was all done by like oral tradition. That's it, where they tell the story so well that it's passed on by the elders to the next elders to the next elders, but you have to keep meticulous recordings and you save these stories over, so it's all oral tradition. And they repeatedly would talk about these fish people, you know, half fish and half human. And we talk about this in the idea of the Titans, and in the idea of, like, let's say, when you go into the Greek mythology, there's so many different things in our history that has been suffocated and sublimated. And even when it comes to Jesus, like I was saying, it's like no one even realizes that he was an Essene. No one even looks at the Essenian traditions, which would have been mostly what I would say close to a Gnosticism. And if you're not familiar with Gnosticism, you should look into it, because some of the oldest texts that we still have that were preserved by the Templars was Gnostic texts. Now, the Templars, there's two sides to that. Yes, they were seen as the Knights Templar, or the Knights of Solomon, perhaps. But they were the knights that were sent by the Roman, well, I guess the Christian Roman Church at that time, because they hadn't really formulated the Catholic Church yet. But they were these Christian warriors that were just trying to go from place to place to place to place. And actually what's interesting is that the Roman Catholic Church went after them. I think it was like in the 1400s, if I'm not incorrect, because they had just acquired so much knowledge. And you better believe, like, as that Solomonic tribe became the actual Knights Templars, you have to understand there was some infiltration, right? Like, there were those priests and those high priests that came from the Solomonic Knights originally that would have wanted to preserve those traditions at the highest intent, and then they would have fallen suit into the Knights Templars, and they would have been part of that sect, but like they still would have been stashing things themselves to kind of keep their older traditions themselves alive. And then what you have to realize is that all of that army would have been reading what the real texts were, perhaps, or even selling them on black markets to make more money. They acquired more gold, more texts, more literature, more art, more statues, more everything, gold, than the Roman Catholic Church had on their grabby little hands. And they were always putting symbols everywhere to try to bring forth the feminine. That's why they were so much in adoration of Mary Magdalene. They were probably the first Gnostics that were trying to bring forth this Essenian tradition. The Essenian tradition would have stated that every male, well, much like the common Jewish tradition right now, is that even if you were a rabbi, so they would have carried on a rabbinic tradition where the rabbis were not considered rabbis unless they were married and had their own herd, flock, and or tribes. So being an Essene, Jesus would have been married, and that's why this whole hoopla about Mary Magdalene is a bunch of crap. Because in their hardcore traditions, thousands of years long, it was only realized, and they always thought that Jesus was the rabbi. Barabai, Barabai, the rabbi, the rabbi. And they would have called him teacher. That's all through the Bible, our Bible, the King James. What would a Hebrew person have called him? Rabbi. Like, so the thing is that if he was to follow regular tradition, then the Catholic made up version, because you gotta understand, like, the Romans, right, didn't know their traditions. That's why they were having such a bad problem trying to infiltrate them in the first place. Right? Because they didn't know how to make people conform to their version, which is to be pagan. And then they're like, oh shit, we've got to kind of integrate things so that people like kind of believe in what we're saying and then not. And they moved it right into a patriarchal system, where realistically there was a both balanced matriarch system in the older tradition, because it was seen that the rabbi would have a wife, and the wife had a very important role because she was the head of the tribe or the flock, etc. So it was very ridiculous that they were like, oh no, of course he didn't get with Mary. It was like, what? If he was like following his Jewish tradition that he was brought up in, it would have been like blasphemy for him to even like try to call himself a rabbi, be part of even the Essenic tradition. Because what the Essenes would do was that they would stay with their wives for a set period of time, and they would procreate. And that's why I think Jesus' birthday was never in December, because realistically the old Jewish tradition always tried to have their children by their new year, which is September. So I personally always felt like, why would they try to have Jesus around December? It just doesn't make sense. But either way, that's not important. What's important is that he would have tried to stick with those traditions, and he would have tried to have children. And when you look at the Knights Templars, right, they always say that Jesus may have fled from that area because obviously the Romans were not a fan of Jesus, because he was a rebel. He was a rebel. Polluting the airways, a rebel. You know what I mean? And it was like, he wanted to ensure that people realized that God was here, that Christos consciousness was here. And that was very troubling for this new merging religion that the Catholics were trying to create. Like saying, no, you got to come to us and give us money and pray to us while we stand on a golden mountain with our golden rod and our golden everything. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, because it just doesn't make sense or follow suit with history. So the Knights Templars really devoutly loved the feminine aspect, and you see this a lot in the south of France, because there's a lot of Mary Magdalene churches all through the south of France and in Spain as well, even though the later Moorish infiltration of that region would have decimated certain parts of Spain that held up. But Portugal also has a lot of Madalena, Mother Mary. Like, they're so adamant about these figures. So it's like, why would the Knights Templars like keep saying, oh yes, Magdalena? There's so many churches in the south of France that praise her, or the Rosalind line, or the Rose line. You know what I mean? I mean, the Da Vinci Code kind of went into that, but there's a lot of history behind why, if there was this patriarchal system coming into play, why would the Knights Templars, that were like literally the bounty hunters for this church, go out of their way with their money to go erect these churches? Because maybe they read stuff in all the books they stole and acquired for the Roman Catholic Church that is in their basement in the Vatican right now. Majority, if not burned by Alexander the Great. But what I'm trying to say is that the suppression kept happening over and over again, because the most oldest religions always dignified that there was an equilibrium, that there was a Mother Earth and there was a Father God, that the two, Mother and Father God, or Barbello and Father God, whatever way you want to put it. And it was always understood that there's this computation. Why is it that there's yin and yang? Why does yin and yang even make sense in even like Hindu Buddhist traditions? Because there is always a balance. So even as we ascend, and Yeshua was always trying to show us this idea of balance, love everyone. How do you love everyone if you have hatred for half of the race? Half of the human race is women, if not more. You're born of a mother, you have a sister, you have probably been in love with a woman, and yet you're supposed to just keep suppressing them and suppressing them and suppressing them and suppressing them. And what men don't realize, or like the masculines don't realize, is that by suppressing our nature is also suppressing your nature. Because what these patriarchal systems did was force men to be a different way that they truly weren't. You know what I mean? Like, they would have been the bosses, the leaders of their own time, taking care of their families and ensuring like more of an equilibrium within their own tribes. Now, you instill these patriarchal systems that tells you to abuse women, mishandle women, treat women like rubbish, and then at the same time to become more promiscuous or treat women as if they're just cattle in a sense. And it's kind of odd, because realistically, like, in order to have a strong head of state, like, you also have to have a strong matriarchal system as well to take care of the household. So it was like really demeaning to men too, to try to balance this weird circumstantial religion that just came out of nowhere. Because realistically, the older Jewish traditions were not fashioned that way. And most of the religions, even prior to that, were not fashioned. That's the same as you would see even in Islam. Because in Islam, they suppress it a lot too. And what they don't realize is that farther in their tradition would have been like, their Arabian tradition. Whereas if you could imagine like Arabian Nights, all that jazz, but even farther back, like who were the belly dancers? Who were the other goddesses? Like they all had, even like Persians, the Iranian cultures, all of them had gods and goddesses for thousands. Babylon, the Greeks, all of them, these ancient civilizations all had female and male. So for the, Catholic Church to just be like all male all the time, and the only women we respect is the one mother. You know what I mean? It's like, no women. If you think about it, isn't that a little more on the other side? I'm just saying, like, it's all men all the time. You look at a woman, you get, you get whipped. And it's like, I don't know about that. That seems a little haywire to me. But that's just my thing. I think that's a little too much on the, nose for my liking. People even realize that, because it's like, why would something be so imbalanced? And what do people stand to gain from this imbalance? And then it's like we could be like these ultimate, like I'm always a conspiracy theorist at heart. But it's like, let's be real. All conspiracy theories always lead to one thing: disharmony, disunity, and disloyalty to the idea of love. Right? It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's about aliens, if it's about like terraforming. It doesn't matter if it's about weather manipulation. It doesn't matter if it's about greed throughout the political system. All of it is designed to divide us and to ununify us, to make us hate each other in some way, shape, or form. And then at the same time to throw off our equilibrium. And the more we don't like each other, it doesn't matter if it's race or sex or this or that. It doesn't matter what the tinfoil hat conspiracy theory is. Or it could be our food poisoning. It could be the air poisoning. Like, I'm being honest, like all of these theories that are coming to light, it's all designed to terrify us, to separate us, because they're terrified of us all getting along and loving each other. Because they know that all of this system would just fall away. It would all just disappear if we just loved each other and found harmony with ourselves. And it's really, like, the honest thing I can say as a higher self channeler, the more people I channel, like, when people say they see reflections of themselves in all of us, I didn't realize that it's actually got a lot of truth to it. Because when I sit with people and I tap into their higher consciousness, a lot of our fears are the same. A lot of our worries are the same. A lot of the things that we all go through, doesn't matter what sex we are, what race we are, they're the same. So it's actually, we have a lot more in common than we do different. And as long as the heads that be, or whoever, the religions that be, can always keep us discombobulated and not allow us to like make those first connections and say to ourselves, like, what do we have in common? What brings us together? What unites us? They will continue to have power. So realistically, like paying attention to things like Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, and understanding like that there was more than just one Christos magnifier or ascended master here. Really doing more digging, finding what your heart sings to, unveiling all of the layers of that onion that is yourself and your will and your solar plexus and your all chakras. Like, we're gonna find a way better place to call home here if we can do that. Because I know as time goes on, I'm just like always like, I want to go back to the place of love that I come from. It's really hard for me to swallow this place, as I'm sure it is for all of you. Because where we come from, it's like there's none of this. We just all love each other and understand each other. We're like in a pool of light and love. And like we are just speckled, we're just like droplets of dew honey in a sea of love honey. I don't know how else to put it. But to be like separated and swiped and mind wiped and all of that, the more I spend time on this journey, much like you guys, I'm pretty sure you guys find that even if it takes a year, 2 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be, we are all going to be fucking fantastic. Because I know it's like, at first I had like, oh, it's all about like being the best and going after this and going, and that all just started to melt away. Because you know what? I am. I am the best I can be. You are the best you can be. People are like, oh yeah, you could try harder. You know what? Go ahead. go ahead and try harder, fight for things, go after whatever. And you know what ends up happening? You get to that dead end point, or you get what you want and you're still not happy, and you're still, but when you flow on things, it's all going to come to you anyways. Whatever given time it needs to take to manifest. There's no limitation to when things manifest. It's just that out of the parameters that you feel that you're worthy to manifest them in. That's it. It's like if you think you'll manifest something in a day, it'll come in a day. Like, I mean, if your gut actually feels that. But if you think like, oh no, it's going to take like 2 years to do this, you've already put the stipulation it's going to take 2 years. So it'll be 2 years. It's just whatever you feel is right for you. Like, that's the real like crux in it all. It's like your worthiness is based on the fact of what you think and how fast you can manifest. But technically you can manifest instantaneously if you really wanted to, if you really get good at it. But it all has to do with your self-worth, your self-doubt, and how much the believability is in that belief. You know what I mean? It all stems from belief, if you can believe that. So, like I said, I'm just kicking it with all of you, but I am so blessed to be with all of you. I'm so blessed to know most of you. I'm so blessed to build this family with a bunch of like-minded, loving people. And I can honestly say that this channel will grow as it grows. But I am very proud of the fact that my Up High Healing channel is growing exponentially. And I'm almost going to get to 1,000 followers so that I can start doing lives and start selling products on that channel. I will also do that here, but my first stab at everything's got to be the business first. You know what I mean? But if you are looking for a higher self channeling, please come find me at uphighhealing.com. I am so excited in these next months to get that workshop off the ground. And it will probably start as a online live workshop. But my whole goal is to get people connected to their higher self and a walkthrough process. And then at the same time, it's like, it's going to be something that might take a year to, succeedingly finish. Like, it's not to say you're going to do the 3-day interactive and then we'll meet again in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. And then we'll see where you're at. And like, you know what I mean? So it's not going to be something where I just drop you off on an island and say, have at it, guys. But I'm excited, and I'm excited for all of you and all of your endeavors. And if you want to share, put it in the comments. What are you working on? What is your head at? Like, one of my peeps, he's like this amazing poet, and I'm so glad to see his poetry coming out. I'm not going to say names to embarrass anyone. And then my other homeboy, he's like getting back into his like black belt artistry again, and his art in period. And when I met this guy 3 years ago, and when he met me, we're just so different people, and we're all, moving through this. And like, I have so many other patrons even on my other channel that it's like we're just all connecting and we're sharing in this beautiful journey together. And isn't that what it's all about? So I just feel like we're going to keep unraveling this onion together. And I love it. And I love you guys. And I just want to say good night. It's a solemn, soulful Sunday. I don't know. I was just playing music, but maybe one night I'll do like a, like a dance off or something. Well, I'll do live and we all just like dance together. But I think dancing is also something that's very important. I think I might even start a channel where I just do like energy dancing work. It's something I've been doing since I was 14, and it's to like move energy. I really adore it, and I find it keeps me really honed into Mother Earth and the elements and things of that nature. So I might start that up down the road too. But who knows? We all are going to transform any way that we can. Bye for now.